Welcome to the Mindset with Morgan podcast. I am so grateful you're here. I'm Morgan, and I am a multiple seven-figure entrepreneur who adores all things business. I love building great teams and great companies who benefit the world. I've been building and running startups for nearly 15 years and have learned a few things along the way. I'm a teacher by heart, and I'm so excited to share with you. I'm also human, and I need a good pick-me-up and mindset shift before meetings, tough conversations, and sometimes just on my morning commute. My hope is that you can use this podcast as a quick mindset reset before you start your day or whenever you need a mindset shift. I also love a good funny story with a helpful lesson involved, and that is what you'll get here. Now let's learn, grow, and have a few laughs. Hello and welcome. So today's podcast is one that honestly I never thought I would record. And starting a business, you really don't think about some of the things that end up happening as a result of the business. And I'm here to share it because this is something that is literally, very rarely talked about, and something that I guess I wish I had known a little bit more about when starting a business. So we're going to dive into the closure of one of my restaurants and what it means and what it looks like. So let's dive on in. So first, let's just talk about why. Why should someone who's starting a business, particularly a business that is brick and mortar, know how to close a business? So knowing now why it's important to know when to start a business, I think there's some things I would have done differently. There's so many aspects, and we're talking about a restaurant here. So restaurants, are different than other businesses, but also the same in a lot of different aspects. And, there's a saying that numbers don't lie, but people do, and numbers don't lie. And the numbers had a lot to do with the closure, but also just the feel of the business. And I think if somebody could quantify, which I'm going to try to do right now, why a business should close, it's helpful to know in the beginning so you can start to see the warning signs and the kind of the messages along the way that tell you like, hey, this business isn't successful. This business is not thriving. You're not feeling happy when you leave this business. You're not feeling inspired when you walk in the door. This is, your sign that it's time to go or transfer ownership. So I'm gonna talk about how we started the business and just kind of tell you the story. So Brunch in Brookfield, one of our locations, opened in 2018. I opened our first location in 2016 and knew that I wanted to duplicate it. I love systems, I love processes, and I knew that this was something that we could duplicate. And not only duplicate the recipes and systems and things like that, that's the easy part. We had a culture and a vibe that was so positive and cheery and optimistic that I wanted to figure out how to duplicate that. Because if I could duplicate that almost like magic in a bottle, what couldn't we do? And that's kind of the way I approached it. So one thing that I did is I kept members of leadership from our original location and I brought them to the new store in Brookfield. And I can actually remember the day I saw the space for the first time. And I was so excited because it was in such a beautiful neighborhood and was connected to a really, really nice town center and really, really upscale grocery store. And the funny thing is, I didn't realize that 2 years later, I would be divorced and living in that neighborhood. Really unplanned, more the living in the neighborhood part. But I ended up, buying a house right down the street and still love the neighborhood, right? So you would think that would be the location that would thrive, right? Because the owner lives right up the street. But there's some signs that began to happen kind of in 2022, I would say, that kind of resulted where we are here now. And at the time of recording, this is the end of 2024. We actually have not even announced the closure yet, but by the time you're hearing this, we will have announced it already. I'm talking about it because I just got off a call with our marketing manager as we're kind of talking about the best way to talk about this with the public and how we really want to focus on the positive memories of Brunch Brookfield. And when we do announce it, we want to ask people to share really their best memories at Brunch Brookfield, because people have had weddings and after funerals and holidays and birthdays and so many different types of celebrations in this store. And we want to hear those stories. It's easy to focus on the sad when something like this happens. But I specifically said to our marketing manager, we're not saying the word sad, because while we might be a little sad, it's not sad. We're focusing on the fact that a season has ended and we're moving on to really some amazing, wonderful things for the brand. But anyway, back to 2018, we opened the doors. We began starting construction in 2017. I took out a loan. I was terrified. I had to basically sign my life away. It was the first business loan I had ever done. And we opened our doors around Easter of 2018. And it was great. The store went really, really well. It thrived. It was doing sales that frankly I haven't seen in a very long time. It was positive. I was there all the time. Our executive chef was there all the time. Our general manager was wonderful. He was from Milwaukee. And, our team was from our original store. They brought that culture there with them. And in 2019, our Milwaukee location actually suffered from a flood. Our whole building was essentially, all our storage, offices, food, inventory, everything was underwater. And we had to close the store for almost 6 months while we rebuilt a new location. That'll be its own podcast. That was a really, really tough situation. Brookfield paid its bills, paid its employees, helped keep that location afloat, no pun intended. I can honestly say that without Brookfield, without this store, which has caused me so much headache in the past 2 years, without this store, the brand would not be alive today, because if our flagship location hadn't been open anymore, we couldn't have survived. So I think back to that often because it served a purpose. And I think it's a really good reminder that businesses, relationships, things come to an end. And I hope that you can learn to, when something like that's so important to you and so big when that comes to an end, that you can look back and see not only just the positive, because sometimes it's important to remember why we're ending it, but to see why that was in your life to begin with. And there is always something that contributed to in your life now that unless you take the time to acknowledge and honor that, you may not even realize. And something, you can choose to have terrible memories of something, or you can choose to thank it and thank God for it, for what it gave you in that time. And for Brunch Brookfield, it gave us so much and it kept our brand open. Brunch Milwaukee reopened at the end of 2019. And like I said, Brookfield was a huge part of that. We had staff working in Brookfield here and there. That was our hub. And what ended up happening is, I used to say all the time, all right, everyone, we got to start going to Milwaukee again now too, because myself as the owner, our executive chef, general managers, operations manager, everyone was always in Brookfield. We had more leadership in Brookfield than anywhere else because it was a convenient location for everybody. What ended up happening is we ended up kind of changing managers here and there, and we ended up with a couple that just did not have the right culture fit, I would say. When you walked in the store, you could feel the negativity. And leadership, as you've heard me say before, is the single most important piece, I think, of running a successful business. Because without leadership at the top, staying optimistic, pouring into their people, leading with curiosity, asking questions, meeting with their team one-on-one, digging deep, figuring out how to make things better, using KPIs. Without a leader leading the store, the business, It will not survive. It won't, and it happens so quickly. I made some leadership changes. We ended up kind of with a revolving door a little bit of poor leadership, and I take full accountability for that because I went off and started opening other stores. We franchised. We opened new stores. I opened a real estate firm. My husband opened a mortgage company. We stepped back from that location and didn't give it the attention it deserved and left really leadership to grow and lead it. So while yes, the leaders in the store were not the best, they were not also being led and coached by the owner, the operator. And at the end of the day, it starts at the top. And I can fully recognize that when I walked away as the owner, it doesn't matter that if it was me or someone else, when the owner walks away, things don't thrive the way that they should. And in 2023, I came to the realization that I either needed to step back in and lead that store to success, or I needed to begin stepping back and letting somebody else take the reins, because it wasn't fair to my team for the owner to literally not have the time to pay attention to them because I was too busy with my real estate firm, leading other franchisees. My time just wasn't there. And, I've talked through every different possible potential opportunity, such as, bring in an operating partner, bring in a general manager, things like that. It's my baby, and I know myself well enough that as the owner of the store, a general manager will never care as much as the owner will. I also know that I didn't want a partner. For my own personal reasons in that particular business, I did not want a business partner. I became very, very ready, and it took me about 6 months to come to the realization that I needed to sell the store. I needed to sell it to somebody else who could run it day to day. I was starting to have pretty bad anxiety around it. Back in 2019, when the Milwaukee store had to close, I actually had to step back and work the store day to day. Nothing wrong with running a store day to day, but when you also are the CEO of another company, it is very challenging. I was literally waking up in dead of winter in cold Wisconsin at 5 a.m, getting to the store before 6 a.m, opening the store and working there until after close, 7 days a week, because I couldn't, during that closure time, we didn't have the ability to bring on new people. During COVID in 2020, I was there all day, every day, and I had this really bad, almost PTSD of constantly worrying that if the general manager or partner skipped town or got sick or couldn't come in at Brunch Brookfield, that it would be me again having to step in. And I ended up letting one of our general managers go in 2023. And when I did that, I think it was the end of 2022, I stepped back again, and it was kind of like the thing I was terrified of happened again. And I still remember, getting ready in the bathroom in the morning to take the kids to school, probably around 5:45 in the morning, getting a text from the girl who was supposed to open the store that morning. I think she was responsible to open the store one day that week so that I could just take the kids to school, and texted me and said, "Oh, sorry, I can't come in today. I think, I'm resigning." And I had to have my husband take the kids to school and run into the store and open it. And I just thought to myself, I can't keep doing this anymore. It's one thing, and it was fine when it was just me and when I didn't have other roles and responsibilities, but it is very challenging to be the CEO of another company and try to run that company from your restaurant day to day, when you are literally serving tables, bussing tables, cleaning, cooking because your team didn't show up that day. And that's just the restaurant industry. That's just the way it is. But ultimately, the stress of it and the amount I was stressing myself out about constantly worrying that was going to happen, it was too much, and it was starting to eat me alive. My white blood cells were below 3. If you know that measurement, that's really, really low. I was getting dizzy throughout the day. I was feeling sick. I literally woke up with anxiety. The only thing I would really look forward to was sleeping, because it was the most calm that I could be. It was sleeping. And I couldn't do it anymore. It was eating me alive, and I don't wish that upon anybody. And if I can prevent someone from having that feeling by listening to this podcast, by my coaching, by teaching, that's one of the biggest things I want to avoid. And so that feeling, it's hard to describe, but if I could put it into words, it just was a feeling of dread. It was like a cloud that followed me. It felt like, I wouldn't say depression, because it was based on a situation, but I can see how it could turn into that, because you become very, very, very used to the feeling. It becomes like a predictable friend that you don't like, but it's comfortable because it's there. And I just kept dreaming about that moment when I no longer had to worry about that store. And I started putting goals in my planner of, okay, you're going to list it by this day. You're going to meet with a broker. You're going to do this. And I just started taking the steps. I met with 1 broker, 2 broker, 3 broker. I met with multiple brokers who looked at the sales and were like, this store is, not thriving, which I also was aware of, because it wasn't getting the attention it needed. It didn't have solid leadership, watching the P&L like they should have. The store was kind of it was slowing down, and it's a slow trickle. And once you start seeing the numbers go down in that direction, the wrong way, and not see them go back up based on your efforts, mind you, when I did go back, I was able to see them go back up, and that gives you almost like false hope. It's like an abusive relationship, like, okay, he's good sometimes, so it's like, and it came down to my feeling more than anything. Like, do I believe that if I had gone back to the store, rebuilt the team, and restructured it like I've done so many times before at Milwaukee and Brookfield, could it have been successful? 100% yes. But I knew that I didn't have the capability or the time to do that, so it had to be somebody else. And so we listed it. Going back to the numbers, I began tracking my KPIs, key performance indicators, weekly. And the main things I was watching was the profit and loss statement, food cost, labor cost, and sales. I think the least amount of numbers you can track, the better. Otherwise, things start to get really, really crazy. Obviously, when you're really deep diving, you want to track numbers a little bit closer. But for just your weekly, quick review, looking at things by the week is what I think. I think keeping it to 3 to 4 numbers is best. But I finally met a broker in September of 2023 who told me I'd be lucky if my restaurant was sold in a year. And I'm like, a year? Oh my gosh, I wish I had done this a year ago when I thought about it. And I was, I was frustrated, but that it is what it is. And he said, nope, this is pretty common. Restaurants are not something that sell great. It's not, we were kind of in the middle of a recession. So we'll list it, but I don't know. And, I was just happy that he was willing to do it, because I had other brokers basically either ignore me, never get back to me, or tell me, come back to me in a year when you do this, this, and this. And I'm like, but what you don't understand is I don't have the time or the capability or the hire or the partner to do this, or this. I knew for my mental sanity, I needed to have a clean slate. I needed to offboard it. So we listed it, and it took a little over a year. We ended up getting a couple different buyers along the way, but one solid buyer, and we ended up closing, and we have closed, and we closed in December. We closed in November, technically. But that process was long and stressful, and I didn't tell a soul. I told a couple people, but I didn't tell most people. until after it closed, because I was so looking forward to it closing or to it selling, that I literally couldn't think about anything else until it happened. I remember when we were 3 weeks out, then 2 weeks out, 1 week out, and I thought to myself, I cannot believe I have to wait another 7 days. Like, I literally thought to myself, I need to get to the office as quickly as humanly possible the morning of closing, because what if I get rear-ended on my way to the closing and then the closing can't happen that day? Like, you guys, I was so obsessed with the idea of selling this store and the closing happening. When I say closing, the purchase closing, like when you have a real estate closing, the closing table, that happening. And I'm so excited for the new owners. They have decided to rebrand, which I think is a great idea, and turn it into something else. By the time this is posted, maybe it's open now, maybe it's not, I'm not sure, but I will be the first customer there when it opens. They are the nicest people. And the crazy part is, when I opened Brunch Milwaukee in 2016, I took over a restaurant that had been failing from a man named Tofik. And Tofik sold me the stuff inside, the equipment, tables, chairs, things like that. And the crazy part is how Brunch Brookfield ended up transferring was the exact same way. A restaurant on the verge of closing, sold them the contents and changed the concept, and Brunch Milwaukee thrived in that space with a new business. And I know these guys are going to thrive in this new space as well. And I am so grateful for what Brunch Brookfield provided to our family, to me over the years. The things that it did, I know our brand would not still be here today without that store. So I want you to remember that stores close, relationships end, things come to an end, but it happens for a reason. And not everything can last forever. It's kind of impossible, right? So when you start a business, think about what numbers in your KPIs that you're going to start. For me, I call it like, when is shit hitting the fan? When do I start getting like, all right, all hands on deck, we need to do something about this? Determine what those numbers are right away. So when you start seeing signs of it, you can do something about it. And here's the thing. You can do something about it if you want to. If you're inspired and excited to do so. I chose not to do that. I don't feel like a failure. I don't feel like I gave up on it. If I had thrown my whole being into running Brunch Brookfield, which I could have done, other of my businesses would have suffered. And I was not willing to let that happen. I had to make a choice on where my time gets devoted, and that is what I chose. And I am grateful. I prayed for this, I begged for this, and God answered my prayers. And it took exactly how long it should have. Literally today, my marketing manager said, it's crazy the timing of this, because this worked so perfectly for a multitude of reasons. And our general manager, was able to swiftly go over to our other store in Delafield and work there. And we were able to move people, and it just worked perfectly. And we're just really grateful for that. And I know that is not by accident by any means. So I hope you're inspired. I hope you're aware. I hope if you can take any action item from this now, that you begin thinking about in your business, what are the shit hit the fan numbers that I need to be aware of and track weekly, not monthly. I think monthly is too late. I think you should do a monthly deep dive into your business. But as far as tracking some key performance indicators like sales, like your general costs, you should be doing that weekly. What are those numbers, and when does shit hit the fan? When do you start thinking about selling? And personally, that's numbers wise when you should start selling. Feeling wise, if you are feeling a constant feeling of dread for more than, I'd say 3 months in your business, like it's not just a phase, like you are dreading it's making you sick being there. You look forward to your days where you're not there and start to feel sad knowing you have to go back there. Life is too short. Don't go to a place. Don't operate a business. Don't do something every day that makes you feel physically ill. There's a difference between not liking the role that you're in and needing to make adjustments, or work being really, really busy and you're overwhelmed for a few months because it's crazy busy, but you know that a new hire is coming and you'll feel relief. If you can't think of 1 ounce of relief or what it could be in this role, then don't stay there. Switch it up. If you're dreaming about something else, check it out if you are physically ill in the job, the business that you're in. If you can do that. And if you can't, begin making a plan. Even though it took me a year to sell Brunch Brookfield, having a plan in place kept me going. I was taking steps. This did not happen overnight by any means. It took 14 months from start to finish. And I am grateful for it now. I learned a ton, and I'm going to keep sharing those lessons with you because that's what this is all about. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you can identify what your oh shit numbers are, your shit hit the fan numbers, and I hope you have an amazing day.